My name is William Gurstelle, and I'm here to talk about the art of living dangerously. The Art of Living Dangerously is the subtitle of my book, Absinthe and Flamethrowers, Ruminations on the Art of Living Dangerously. And when I was writing that book, I learned a whole lot of interesting things. Well, what kind of things? Well, that's what I want to talk about here a little bit tonight. Now, who is this? Anybody know? This is young Thomas Edison. And when Thomas Edison was a boy, he worked hard. He had a job as a candy butcher. Now, what's a candy butcher? It's a person who sells newspapers and candy on a train to passengers. And every day he would go from Port Huron, Michigan to Detroit, Michigan, and he would sell stuff. And Edison was a good salesman. Even as a child, that kid could sell. So he would invariably sell out early, and he had nothing to do for the rest of the run. So what did he do? Well, he built a chemistry lab in the baggage car. And after he would sell out, he'd go back, to the baggage car and do some experiments. And this was a wonderful thing until he blew up the baggage car. And then he was asked to leave. Now, who is this gentleman? This is David Packard, one of the founders of the giant company Hewlett-Packard. Now, as a young man, he would read the World Book Encyclopedia cover to cover. I'm sorry, as a young boy, he would read the World Book Encyclopedia cover to cover. And one of his favorite entries was this entry on explosives. So, well, you can maybe tell where I'm going with this, because stories about young boys and explosives often end badly. But he made a batch of black powder, and I don't know if you can see his thumb there, but his thumb is mangled, and that thumb was reattached. But he went on to do wonderful things. Not so much in mechanical engineering as much as electrical, but he went on to do some wonderful things. Now, who is this? This is world-famous psychologist B.F. Skinner. And you can tell he's a smart guy by looking at the size of that hat. Now, that is a guy with a lot of brain power. And Skinner, as a young boy, his claim to fame was he made a steam cannon, and he would terrorize his neighbors with these steam cannons. He would shoot vegetables, basically, at the neighbors' houses, and they didn't like it. But he went on to do wonderful things. Who is this? You might know this guy. He was in the news, when he was alive. That's Boris Yeltsin. Now, you may not know this, but Yeltsin was a crackerjack engineer before he was a Russian politician. Now, look at the thumb on his hand there. Trick question. There is no thumb on his hand there. You know why? Yeah, one of those stories about young men and explosives. He blew that off, too. But he went on to do some wonderful things. He didn't let that get him down too far. And this is a young Amelia Earhart. Now, when Amelia Earhart was a young girl, she was a tomboy. And she built, with her uncle, a roller coaster in her backyard. And there's this great story where she gets in this box on wheels and goes up to the top of her garage, gets in the box and goes down, on this roller coaster kind of thing, and crashes. And she gets up and she says to her sister, "Oh, sister, that was just like flying." And she went on to be the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean in an airplane. She became the first woman to win the Distinguished Flying Cross. And she went on to do some wonderful things. Now, who is this? This is Vint Cerf, one of the initial primary architects of the internet. Now, Vint Cerf, in his biography, talks a lot about the things he used to do with his chemistry set. And he talks about this experiment where he used to do all sorts of weird, sort of dangerous-sounding experiments. And he did one where he mixed two chemicals together. He mixed potassium permanganate together with antifreeze. And it's really cool. Now, the people we just saw were great risk takers. They are what are called by sociologists big T people. Okay? Big T people is a term that a psychologist at Temple University named Frank Farley came up with. And a big T person is a person who accepts a lot of risks in their life happily. There's big T risk takers and there's little T risk takers. Now, there is a lot of work done by sociologists that say, well, is it possible to quantify what kind of risk taker you are? Like an IQ score. Can you get a number that says, okay, I score from 0 to 100, 100 being a really big risk taker and a 0 being no risk taker at all, that explains what kind of risk taker you are in a single number? As it turns out, there is. Okay? You can take a test made up by some psychologists at the University of Delaware, and you come up with a number, your T-score. And 100, 0, 50 is right in the middle. Now, if you sample the world as a whole, like so many other things in life, the world kind of gravitates to a mean. Most people are right in the middle. Most people are neither agoraphobic stay-at-homes, kind of like, I don't know, like Howard Hughes in his late stage of life, or Boo Radley or somebody, and they're not necessarily like Evel Knievel either. Most people fall somewhere in the middle, okay? But there's a continuum of risk-taking proclivity that all of us have a number, and we all fall somewhere along that curve. Now, okay, so what? Well, so this. When I was writing my book, Absinthe and Flamethrowers, the research shows me that there is one place on that curve where it's extra good to be. I call it the golden third. That's the area of risk-taking proclivity just to the right of the average, between the average and one standard deviation to the right of average. And the people who fall in the golden third, who are slightly more willing to take risks than average, are those people who have the highest index of life satisfaction. Oh, really? Is that so? Well, do I have any proof to back that up? And I do. I do have some things that I want to give to you to say, yes, indeed, that is the place where you should be. Now, I want you to come with me into the Amazon rainforest. This is a picture of a group of people, primitive tribe in the Amazon rainforest called the Yamamano. The Yamamano live in the Brazilian-Venezuelan border. And they were studied famously by a French sociologist named Napoleon Chagnon. And he said that these were among the most violent people on the face of the earth. These people, well, how violent were they? Fully 40% of the adult male population has killed somebody, okay, in warfare and various things. And he said, well, that's interesting. But he also said something else. He said that the people who were violent, these sort of macho, crazy risk-taker peoples, they reproduced far more than the people who didn't kill. The people who killed had a certain name. They were called Unakai. And the Unakai had 3.5 times more children than those who didn't kill. These people reproduced more. So I guess the point is that at least here in the Brazilian rainforest, those people who were bigger risk takers were more successful genetically. That is, they had more offspring. And if you think about it, maybe that's true for us. Now, I don't want to get too philosophical about this, but basically, you look around the room, everybody here, we are the product of 1,000 generations of risk takers. It's in our genes. We have the DNA to go out there and take risks. And you can either believe that or not, but if you don't, I have some more proof for you, but maybe some proof outside of the universe of the rainforest. What I want to talk about now is some academic studies. This first one was done at University of British Columbia, and these two academics interviewed 500 people, or 500 business executives, and they found that, by and large, those business executives who are willing to take risks were, by and large, and of course there's always variations and things that don't hold true, but by and large, they were more successful than those executives who eschewed all risk. Well, that's quite a finding. Are there any other findings that prove this point? Well, yes. About 5 years ago, there was a mammoth study that took place in Germany. And they basically interviewed the entire German population. And they asked them all sorts of questions about their lifestyles. They asked them, did they smoke? Did they drink? Did they drive fast? Did they get traffic tickets? All sorts of things. And what did they find out? Well, they found out some very interesting things. They found out that those people who drove fast got more traffic tickets than those who didn't. And that's not very interesting. But the one thing they did find out that was interesting is the people who looked at themselves as moderate risk takers said they were happier, they had a higher index of life satisfaction than those people who eschewed risks. That's quite a point. In this study, and if you believe that we have things in common with German population at large, it probably holds here true. Those people who are willing to live in the golden third, not take crazy risks, not Evel Knievel type risks, but take reasonable risks in their lives, have a higher probability of being satisfied with their lives than others. Well, that's good. Now, okay, so what? Well, so this. You're probably thinking, I would love to take more risks, but there's all sorts of governments and insurance companies and my own common sense saying, don't go out there and take risks. So what I want to do is come up now and give you some ideas for how to add a certain amount of reasonable risk-taking to your life. Well, here's an idea. Maybe you can act out famous metaphors. Does anybody know what these guys are doing? Yeah, they're running with scissors, just so. Now, in Absinthe and Flamethrowers, my book, I talked a lot about, taking risks in ways that might be fun. And this is people drinking absinthe. And absinthe is something I really love now. I drink absinthe, all the time. Well, not really, but it's a very potent drink. And for a long time, it was illegal. It was considered too dangerous for the average person to enjoy just because it had special chemicals in there and this and that. But now it's legal again. So here's an idea. Here's a real idea. If you don't want to go out there and act out metaphors, go and try something different, some kind of dangerous, not illegal, but dangerous drug. So maybe go out and have a shot of absinthe and see how you like it. Okay, what else could you do? Well, it's one thing that you can do is drive fast. There's something exhilaratingly fun about driving fast. I like to do it once in a while in the right place. Where is the fastest place you can drive? Well, you can go to Germany, drive on the Autobahn. No speed limit, give it a shot, be a lot of fun. There's no speed limits on the Isle of Man, which is a small island between Ireland and Scotland. And I think there's one road, but there are no speed limits. So people generally take their motorcycles and they just rev them up through the mountains, and you can go there and legally drive as fast as you want to experience that. There are no speed limits in parts of India and parts of Nepal. But, guys, I'm not recommending you go to India and Nepal and speed. I think that would be I don't know if they have the infrastructure there to really make that work out as well as you want. The fastest place, for your information, the fastest speed limits in America are where? It's not Montana. Everybody says, Montana, you can drive as fast as you want. The Montana ban has been gone for 15 years. They got a 75-mile-an-hour speed limit. But you can drive 80 miles an hour in Texas. So give that a shot. What is this? This is fugu. Fugu is sushi made of a fish called the tiger pufferfish. And if it's prepared correctly by a trained chef, it is delicious. The Japanese say it's like a spring rain falling on your tongue. It's great. But if it's prepared wrong, you die. Okay? Because the liver of the pufferfish contains something called tetrodotoxin, which is like one of the most potent nerve toxins ever discovered. And it used to be in the not so distant future that you would lose a couple score of Japanese sushi eaters every year. Well, they're getting better at it. They're better controls. But every time you have fugu, you are literally taking your life in your fork. And it's something that you could try. I mean, you can get fugu in New York, I know, in Los Angeles, as well as in Japan. So I haven't had a chance to do it yet. It's very expensive. But the next time I get an opportunity when I'm in New York, I'm absolutely there for that. Now, what I like to do myself is I make dangerous things. This is the flamethrower for Absinthe and Flamethrowers. And I just think they're fun. My neighbors get kind of freaked out, but they're getting better about it. I let them try it a couple times, and now they think it's kind of cool. So it's something that I find a lot of fun, sort of like making dangerous things, testing your limits, but always being in that golden third, that area between the mean, and the first standard deviation. Not out there in crazy land. No, sir. In where it's exciting. Okay, what's this? Well, this is a sea creature. It's called the sea squirt. Now, sailors hate sea squirts. They're not barnacles, but they're like barnacles. And what they do is they attach themselves to the bottom of boats. And they just sit there on the bottom of boats, on rocks, on logs in the water, and they just sit there. And they filter out plankton all day and all night. They just sit there, filtering out plankton. Nothing bothers a sea squirt because they taste awful. Nothing wants to eat a sea squirt. So they just live their lives in relative obscurity, filtering out plankton and pissing off boat owners. But when they are young, before they turn that way, they look like this, okay? And they're delicious. Everything in the sea wants to eat a juvenile sea squirt. That thing, that white thing at the end of the blue, that's their head. That's where their brain is. Now, what's interesting about this is in their lifestyle, they go through a metamorphosis where that brain goes away. It gets dissolved into the body of the sea squirt. Those adult sea squirts, these guys, they have no brain. They're just a big blob. So basically, that brain is there as long as there's danger. When there's no danger, there's no brain. And if you believe in God or you just believe in nature, What I'm saying is it might be true that the reason you have a brain is to handle danger. And if you eschew all danger from your life, you don't really need your brain anymore. So you can make a choice. You can live as a C-squared adult or a C-squared child, and it's up to you. Thank you very much for listening to me.